The envelope rested discreetly between the polished leather folder of the room service menu and the tastefully designed wine list. It was an ordinary white rectangle, distinguished only by the delicate script of my initials inked in one corner. Her hands trembled as she reached for it, pausing as though the paper might sear her skin. From my perch at the hotel's lobby bar, I cradled a glass of amber whiskey, its contents dwindling as I watched. A faint smirk played on my lips, devoid of warmth, never reaching the depth of my heart. The instant her gaze landed on the envelope, a silent understanding washed over her. Her carefully constructed world was on the verge of unraveling, every thread pulled by my calculated design. Half a year prior, I had been utterly convinced of my devotion to her. Our Sundays were spent languidly entwined in soft linens, murmuring aspirations for a shared tomorrow. Spontaneous journeys whisked us to far-off locales, chasing the rush of boarding flights on a whim. She possessed a rare gift for reviving my faith in a love I'd long since abandoned, one that saw me for myself, not the fortune tethered to my name. Her persuasion was masterful, I'll concede. I came perilously close to placing a ring on her finger, yet a quiet disquiet began to stir within me, subtle at first, like the hairline fracture in a crystal pane. The signs were understated initially. Her phone would hum with persistent notifications whenever she retreated to the bathroom, the lock snapping shut behind her. Drawers in my own residence, once casually ajar, were now secured with unfamiliar keys. Her words shifted. She ceased speaking of us and began to focus solely on me. I dismissed these changes, as love so often clouds judgment. But then came the revelation that altered everything. A concealed phone buried within the inner lining of her travel bag, its screen glowing at 3 a.m. with a message not meant for my eyes. Nassau flight booked. He's none the wiser. Can't wait to see you. That moment extinguished the warmth in my universe. I didn't burst into the bedroom or demand explanations. Instead, I brushed a tender kiss across her forehead, whispered my affection, and set about crafting my response. I reached out to my lawyer, directing him to transfer ownership of our bohemian villa to a private entity under my exclusive control. I discreetly severed our shared financial accounts, ensuring her credit cards would falter the moment we set foot on the island. In a touch of irony, I donated her amassed airline miles to a charity supporting victims of deceit, a fitting gesture, I mused. The true brilliance of my plan, however, lay in something she could never foresee. I located her clandestine paramour, Ethan Caldwell, a property broker with a spouse and 2 small children. I eschewed intimidation. It was too blunt, too predictable. Instead, I proposed a deal, full absolution in return for his unwavering assistance. He collapsed under the weight of his own guilt, surrendering a cache of damning proof. Text messages, audio recordings, even incriminating photographs. With a collaboration, I assembled an unassailable case, a meticulous record of her every deception. The hotel served as my chosen arena, disguised as a romantic retreat. She believed we were there to rekindle our passion. Ocean view suite, chilled Prosecco, the full spectacle. I performed my role flawlessly, attentive and adoring. On our last morning, while she luxuriated in a spa session below, I placed the envelope precisely where she'd find it. Within it lay her downfall, a compilation of her own words, extracted from intercepted texts and voicemails. There were images of her financial maneuvers, a copy of the prenuptial agreement she believed I'd endorsed but never had, and a notarized statement from Ethan, laden with remorse. At the forefront, a legal notice reclaiming the seaside estate she'd plotted to seize, now firmly restored to my possession. When she opened the envelope, the world seemed to hold its breath. Her complexion paled, her breath hitching as she sifted through the documents. Her fingers clutched the pages as if they could steady her against the torrent of her own treachery. Then came the instant I'd anticipated, not hysteria, not sobs, but the slow dawning of her defeat. Her eyes rose, scanning the room until they met mine across the bustling lobby. I lifted my glass in a wordless salute. She didn't cry. That wasn't her nature. Instead, she stood, gripping her silk robe as though it could preserve her pride. Her steps wavered, undermining the poise she struggled to uphold. A single sheet escaped her grasp. drifting to floor, unnoticed by the bellhop who stepped around it as if it were mere litter. She passed my table without so much as a glance, her silence resounding louder than any outburst could have been. I lingered for a quarter of an hour before ascending to our suite. She had vanished. The wardrobe stood open, her garments strewn in disarray, forsaken in her rush to flee. The emerald pendant I'd gifted her in Venice remained on the vanity, untouched. I left it there, a subtle reminder of her defeat each time she confronted her own reflection. 2 days later, a solitary message arrived. "You call this triumph?" I offered no reply. Triumph was never my aim. This was about unveiling the truth, delivering it with surgical precision to dismantle the facade she'd so carefully erected. She had mistaken me for the fool, the easy mark. But I was methodical and unhurried. I allowed her to spin her own trap, then presented her with the means to ensnare herself. Now, whenever she recounts this saga, it will inevitably conclude in that sun-drenched lobby, with a plain envelope marked by my initials, and the man who saw through her deceit and emerged untouched. She's left in fragments. I am simply liberated.